I think, and the tricky part is with so much ideology out there, sometimes empathy and nuance can get weaponized to promote a false ideology. And I want to kind of have your take on some of this stuff. When even in the video you posted that I was in on Instagram, there was someone that like went back and forth with me.
I think
I don't know if you saw the whole thread.
Good for you for engaging.
I was so irritated. But
I'm like, Ruslan's having a bad moment.
Yeah,
he's like, I know.
I think because I want the smoke. Like I have no problem with sitting down with anyone and debating this stuff. Right. I like it, and the use of nuance in terms of the pro-choice position is often used. Right. And so walk me through some of the I guess rebuttals to some of the points of nuance, right?
So here's the thing. In the world of nuance, you need your bright line morality.
Yeah.
And there's certain bright line moralities that have been widely, universally recognized throughout civilizations, throughout human history. And they have to do with these fundamentals like do not kill, do not rape, do not steal.
Yep.
I mean, also have no idols before me, put God as God, honor your mother and your father.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
10 Commandment stuff.
Yes.
Recognized by Judeo-Christian, Jews and Christians for centuries. Yeah. So if your fundamental principle is do not kill, and in particular, do not kill an innocent person.
Yes.
Because if
you can't nuance that away.
Right. You can't nuance that away. So like do not somebody. Okay,
yes.
Well, what if
right.
you don't do it?
Yep.
So when it comes to a child in the womb, there is no good reason to have an abortion. Yes. And someone will say, well, what if it's a medical condition? And we can kind of walk through the biggest arguments, right? Like this is the nuance that proves the point, right?
Yep.
The first step, though, is to say every abortion advocate that I know, sort of in the public space, they're not advocating for abortions only legal in these super rare cases.
Right.
They advocate for what? A woman's right to choose.
Yep.
It's up to the woman to decide if it's an important decision, if it's a case that's worthy of it. So they're not even claiming it's just the nuance, extra super nuanced cases. They just use those as justifications for all the other abortions.
100%.
97 to 99% of abortions are for convenience.
Absolutely.
According to surveys. Right. I mean, they're just the 1% basically that's for these extreme cases like rape and incest.
Yep.
But even in those cases, so let's talk about like the health issue. Like I'm going to die without my. This is like
that's the biggest objection. The mother's health.
That's probably very at least top three, if not top. And the answer to that is. You have to break down what actually is going on there, because going inside a woman and intentionally ending the life of her preborn child is not a medical treatment. There is no medical condition a woman has that needs you to have a dead baby inside her. Now, there might be an extreme rare medical condition she has where you might need to deliver that baby earlier than full term. And in those cases, which are extremely rare, what a pro-life doctor does is watch and see, provide care to the mother. She's usually hospitalized in these severe cases to try to get the baby to term enough that can be delivered early and still save that baby's life.
Yes. Save both lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, in some very, very rare cases, you may have to do an early delivery of that baby, but you're not going in there and targeting that baby's body for destruction, ripping it up, giving it a lethal injection. That's how late term are done. You're doing an early delivery because it's a medical emergency and there's no other way. But in vast majority, even of those extreme cases, there is another way. You wait and see. You monitor the mother. You monitor the baby. Because today, I think a lot of doctors, they don't want lawsuits. They want to just do something quick and not have to deal. I mean, dealing with a patient, caring for the mother and the baby in the hospital setting for weeks on end, it's a lot of work. It's like, oh, have the just get pregnant later, have the because it's easier than me having to care for both of you as I'm required to under my moral law as a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So you got to look. I mean, I've interviewed former abortionists and doctors who've worked in high risk pregnancy centers specifically. I think about Dr. Anthony Levatino worked with high risk pregnancies in Upper New York, tens of thousands of pregnancies. He says not one was an abortion necessary, not one. This whole medically necessary thing is a lie, and there are thousands of medical professionals who have signed their name to the Dublin Declaration, which is a national declaration of healthcare professionals saying it is never medically necessary to do an abortion.
That's good.
To kill the baby.
Another lie is miscarriage. That's the most yuck. I just go,
yuck. It is
ugh. That's just so deceiving.
It's so messed up.
They say that
it's like the person, we bury dead people. Yeah. So if you bury an alive person, it's just like burying a dead person. Right. That's the person who equates miscarriage with abortion. Is the person who equates burying a dead body and burying a living body.
Yeah.
If the baby's dead inside the mother, removing that baby's body because it hasn't naturally passed yet, he or she hasn't naturally passed yet, is not an abortion. Now, medical coding, they might put abortion on the coding because, you know, induced abortion, spontaneous abortion in some medical coding means actually a natural miscarriage. But we're not talking about legal abortion.
Yeah.
When we have these pro-life, debates legally, we're wanting to ban elective abortion, right?
Yep.
Not spontaneous abortion, which is a miscarriage. You can't ban. I mean, obviously that's just it's a tragedy. So, but if the baby is alive and you kill that baby, that's an abortion and should be banned.
Yeah, I think there was some there was some law that came out where they basically tried to say that based on how the law was written and based on the coding or something like that, that it could potentially make it more complicated.
Then fix the code if you need to. And, you know, that's a matter of like fixing codes. It's not a matter of we should legalize the mass slaughter of children in the womb.
Incest.
Horrific. Same with rape, obviously. It's a form of rape. I mean, you can't, it's hard to imagine something worse to happen to a child, right? And in a case of incest, if pregnancy results or if pregnancy results, you've got two victims now. You've got this young girl or this child, this in some cases, I guess incest could be older, but typically we're talking about teen girls, young girls. Yeah,
there's a girl that I think she was 10 or something like that, and she was what state was this? And there was a big fuss because she had to drive across state lines to get an abortion. I don't remember.
The doctor kind of made her case the reason to legalize abortion. What's the answer? What's the solution? Right. Well, first of all, you remove her from harm because as I investigated at Planned Parenthood for years, undercover posing as an underage victim. Abortion clinics aren't like separating you from your abuser. They send you back into the arms of the abuser. And in fact, one of the things that we've documented is court cases where underage girls, 12, 13, sue Planned Parenthood because they went back, got an abortion, was sent back to their sometimes father who was raping them, and no one intervened. So they just they kept getting raped, kept getting pregnant, going to Planned Parenthood for abortion, sent back to the abuser. So I say that because even that case that you're mentioning about that, I think it was Alabama.
Ohio, I think it was.
Ohio?
Yeah, it wasn't incest. It was a 10-year-old that was raped by like a family friend or something like that.
Yeah, and you never heard like, are they being held accountable? It was justice served. You know, is she safe now from that abuser? Because in many cases they're not safe afterwards. So the first step is making sure she's safe, making sure she has counseling, medical care. But the next step to turn the penalty against that innocent third party, that child that's been conceived. We don't even give the death penalty. It's against federal law to give the death penalty to in this country.
Wow. Yeah.
Why is it okay to give the death penalty to a child? And that's not to say in any way that, you know, 10-year-olds should be getting pregnant. It's horrible. That's why one of the reasons the rape was so horrible is that you're violating a person's body and you're with the possibility of getting them pregnant when they do. This is not something, they're 10 years old. It's disgusting.
Right.
But the other question to ask too is she going to be healed? Is she going to be untraumatized by having an abortion? No.
Probably going to be more traumatized.
It's more traumatized.
Hey, you want to see something kind of crazy? Over 75% of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed. Please consider subscribing and turning your bell notification on so that you don't miss anything we have going here.
So yes, it's a horrible situation. Yes, it's extremely, you know, it should make all of us angry. It should make all of us like want to fight again to protect children. But the answer is not to kill the innocent third party.
Yeah.
The answer is to love them both, care for them both.
Yeah, man, I remember hearing that story and just thinking like, what a rough situation, but why would we want to induce more trauma? Now, obviously, that is like, oh my gosh, 10-year-old pregnant. What an awful situation to be in. The interesting thing about that is that I'd have to pull the statistic up, but I remember reading that the vast majority of rape victims actually keep the baby.
They do.
Which is wild.
It's been very... it's not been studied very much because no one's trying to. The pro-abortion side isn't really interested in like exploring whether survivors are better off having their children because in their minds you just have the abortion. That's their solution to trauma that results in pregnancy. Just have an abortion, which can be additional trauma. But there was a survey done. I think it was over 80 survivors. Some of them very young, and the majority of them chose life for their babies, and they afterwards. At large majority were saying, I'm so glad that I chose life. And the ones that chose the majority of them were saying, I wish I had not had the abortion.
I know quite a few folks that...
Because you live with the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I know quite a few folks that have unfortunately had abortions, and I don't know any of them that don't regret it, especially after they have kids. when they have kids of their own, and then they're like, it like really hits them like, oh my gosh, like what did I do? You know? And I think that's the aspect that seldom gets talked about, is the reality of that, you know, of the shame and like having to carry that. The philosophical concept of personhood. When does personhood begin? What is your rebuttal to? Because I think it's a mute point. I don't give a crap when personhood begins. That's a human in there with unique DNA that should have a shot at life, and I'm pretty sure if you left that person alone, he would form into a baby and come to term. And I'm pretty sure that person at 20, 30, 40, 50 years would have probably preferred the option. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, would have probably preferred the option to be alive than not be alive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're a human, you're a person.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty simple. And once we start to say some humans aren't persons is when we open the door to human rights abuses. And that's what's happened historically, right? Yep. So, you know, Jews are subhuman. They're not persons. They're not recognized under the same law as German citizens who are of Aryan descent. So they're therefore less than, and now we can just murder them, right? Blacks are less than human because they're black. You know, like all of the human rights abuses have one thing in common, and it's dehumanization, which claims that you are less than, you are not personhood status, even though you share our same humanity. You're not really that human because I don't like you for some reason. You're inconvenient. You're the wrong color. You're the wrong nationality. Like something about you I hate. So I'm going to dehumanize you. Yeah. And with the unwanted unborn child, that's what is happening. Yep. Yep. When there's a wanted pregnancy, oh my gosh, I'm so congratulations on your baby. We're going to throw a baby shower. You know, I'm having a baby. It's a boy or it's a girl, whatever. If it's unwanted, it's a fetus. It's an embryo. It's not I'm just going to have a clump of cells. It's not, you don't even give it human terms, right? That's not coherent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
They're both just as human.
Yep. Yep. And you talk about dehumanizing. I mean, there's strong overlap of Margaret Sanger and some of her wild, you know, views on race and some of this stuff. And so even in the origins of some of this stuff, it doesn't seem like
not a good place to come from. Well, yeah, she's the founder of Planned Parenthood. She founded it as the Birth Control League before it became Planned Parenthood. Originally, it was all about handing out birth control and sterilization. She was actually forced sterilizations of the disabled. And she was also this is the founder of Planned Parenthood, she was also for, you need a permit from the government. She wanted to do a one-child policy in the United States like they have in China. Yep. And you would have to apply for a permit and in order to have a child. Yep. And if you didn't get a permit, you would not be allowed to have children or you would be sterilized. That's what she wanted.
It's darkness.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
And she's celebrated now as like this founder of women's rights. Yeah. It's kind of insane. Yeah. But anyways, she was also a eugenicist. And she supported she would pen pal actually with some eugenicists in Nazi Germany at the time, interestingly. And they would talk about like their solutions for making cleaner races. Yeah. And in her mind, the solution was mostly contraceptives and sterilization of minority communities and of the disabled.
How do so many people just like remove this part from history? Like, because it seems like not a lot of people even know this. And then the people who know this just like, I'm trying to think of like, how do you logically maneuver around that?
It's the power of narrative, right? So whoever is telling the history has the power and you can rewrite history and you can say, oh, she's great. And like, you know, all of feminism is great. Yeah, some of feminism was great, early feminism. It's been a lot that's been horrible. Yeah. But if you have the power to write the history, if you're the one setting the school curriculum in our schools, if you're the one whose ideological friends are the newspaper editorial board or the editorial room at CNN, all the newspapers, if you're the one who is, you know, backing the big studios in Hollywood, if you're the one who has the seats at the corporate tables in the boardrooms at big tech companies, you know, Jeff Bezos's ex-wife, and he's aligned with the same ideology. His ex-wife donated the biggest single gift to Planned Parenthood in its history. No one knows this. Like very few people know this. But she took some of the Amazon wealth and she gave, I think it was over $100 million to Planned Parenthood. But so think about the power that she has to perpetuate the lies. Planned Parenthood is a almost $2 billion organization. They're perpetuating the lies about their founder, about their origins, about their intentions, about their operations. What do you do in the face of all those lies? Yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy. What else? There is...
Like, that's heavy. Let's move on.
Yeah. Well, because it just feels daunting.
But the good news is that as many Americans are pro-life as pro-choice.
Yeah.
Over time, as you test, most Americans support abortion bans.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot, pro-life America is passionate, it's growing. So that's the power of truth.
Yeah.
You can have decades of lies and you speak truth to those lies and they crumble. So that's the power.
Something else that people often say in response to that is, hey, the vast majority of abortions happen, within the first trimester. The vast majority of them are in a pill form. Late-term abortion it's such a small percentage, and it's usually done in the most rarest cases. What is kind of the response to that? Like, oh, it's okay because it's earlier in the pregnancy.
The child is 3 years old, not 1 year old. So it's okay. The child can't speak yet. So it's okay. It's still a child.
Yeah.
And, there's tens of thousands of late-term abortions still happening every single year.
Yeah.
And the child in the first trimester is a human being. Maybe the child's not being dismembered with a forceps the way the child in the second trimester is, but they're being poisoned by a pill. Does it make it any better?
Right. Yep.
And for people listening, there's something called a pill reversal. Actually, a group in San Diego helped develop it. Some doctors in San Diego, Dr. Delgado, I think I'm going to be interviewing him soon on my podcast. You should have him on too. But he helped invent, it's not really some complicated invention because you're using progesterone, FDA approved progesterone, like a hormone replacement to help keep the baby from dying and nourish that baby. But you can reverse the abortion pill if you take some progesterone in time. You get involved with the abortion pill reversal network. There have been 4,000 lives saved.
Wow.
So I just wanted to say that really quick in case anyone listening.
That's dope.
They should know about it. Know about the hotline, pillreversal.com.
Yeah. Just to even have that as an option, I think is huge. I'm trying to think of what are the other like rebuttals that people always come with.
There's like overpopulation.
Oh, that's nonsense.
I agree.
The overpopulation is so
climatism. The world's gonna end.
Yeah, I'm actually doing a video, Economics Explained, which is a massive non-Christian YouTube channel. Just came out with a video with the debate of like, is overpopulation or underpopulation a real issue? And so like, I think the data is showing that like underpopulation is going to be a bigger threat than overpopulation to civilization. So yeah, I know of a vegan influencer that got a vasectomy because of overpopulation in his 20s before he got married or had kids. And I'm just like,
so
you're a freaking weirdo, man.
So sad.
Like that's the most.
Yeah.
That's really, the most like, oh my gosh, I saw that and I was like,
so
wow.
Sad. Children are our greatest wealth, our greatest resource. And, if you're like, where would the future of humanity be without children?
Right.
We wouldn't have it.
And in the video, he talks about how that as much as our population has increased, our output and our ability to innovate has like way outgrown the population growth. How many people we're able to feed, how much good we're able to do has like way exceeded the actual growth of the population. I want to say by 20x or something crazy like that.
Well, yeah, so there have been fears about overpopulation now for a few centuries. And the earliest ones in the 19th century would say, we're going to run out of food. And then technology would advance and human beings would get smarter and better. And we didn't run out of food. Now we are the wealthiest, like at large. There's a group called, I think it's called humanprogress.org. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're also a great Twitter feed, and I'll correct this if it's wrong, but I think it's Human Progress. But they talk about how you look at all these markers of human flourishing, how many people have food today versus 100 years ago.
Yep.
The poverty level has risen in terms of what's to consider poverty today was considered, not wealth, but considered like, middle class basically decades ago.
Yep.
That our poorest poor are better off than ever, and more people are better off than the large majority of people centuries ago.
Yep.
So humanity is progressing in that sense because of technology and other things too. I do think that it's not just technology's progressing and automatically we progress, because you can use technology for bad ends, but overall we're holding to a moral compass to use technology for good.
That's good.
But we can use technology for evil, which is happening with a lot of reproductive technologies today, which is another topic.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a segment from our daily after party stream. Consider partnering with us online for as little as $5 a month to get access to these daily after party streams completely unedited. You'll also get access to our podcast as they are streamed live into the community before anyone else gets to see them, get to interact with our guests, get access to our private Discord server, and a discount code for our store for as little as $5 a month. Ultimately, that will help towards helping us continue contextualizing the gospel using media and podcast here on YouTube. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.